Ladies and gentlemen, Mindful Moments.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Mindful Moments, Mental Health Radio Show. We are so thankful and blessed to have you all join us on our show this evening. Mindful Moments is a show that brings together experts to inform, empower, and educate others to help break the stigma around mental health issues and the impact that it's having on our minority communities. We're also here to bring awareness to the positive impact of mental health wellness as well. Before we get started, we want to introduce ourselves. I am one of your hosts, Mauricia Henson, and I'm an associate clinical social worker here in San Diego. I provide therapeutic and social services for children, adolescents, and adults diagnosed with mental health disorders and intellectual developmental disabilities here in San Diego. With us is one of our triad hosts, Ms. Lucretia Lee.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lucretia Lee. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. Presently, I work as a clinician with one of the detention facilities here in San Diego. My primary role is to assess for suicide ideology. And yeah, that's what I do.
With us, completing our triad host, we have Walanda Johnson.
Hi, everybody. I'm Walanda Johnson. I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, providing teletherapy throughout the state of California for residents of California, but adults who are dealing with anxiety, depression, low self-esteem, women issues, and just everyday life stressors.
Great. Thank you, ladies. So for this episode, we will have a mindful dialogue sharing our own professional experiences as Black therapists and mental health stigma in minority communities. Lastly, we will share ways to fight mental health stigma. Let's see, Lucretia, would you like to start off sharing some of your experiences in the field as a Black therapist here in San Diego?
Sure. So I want to start by saying even though I'm a licensed therapist right now, a lot of my work in the past has been case management. So working for different organizations, but case management. So sometimes what I say may overlap. So basically, most of my experience pretty much all my experience have been pretty positive. Working with African-American clients, generally what happens is when I meet a person for the first time, you can tell that look in the eyes like, what? Like, I didn't know that there were any African-American therapists for this particular agency or organization. Oftentimes it really helps us to join really fast. The line of communication begins to flow really fast. And that's just generally speaking. For non-African-American clients, I want to throw that in. I've never had any problems. I've never had anything brought to my attention whereby they don't want to work with an African-American person, or usually goes pretty well, as well. In the detention facilities, it's been quite interesting because I work right now at one of the largest ones here in San Diego. So there are a lot of numbers in there, unfortunately, but it's real. And so when I meet what we call the inmate patients, every one of them is just like, whoa, you're new, right? Or I started seeing more African-American clients as well as other ethnic minorities, like requesting therapy.
Okay.
And so again, after I assess for suicide ideation, then they come in there and they have concerns and issues just like everybody else. But again, it's been pretty positive. I've been received very well overall.
Now, the show that you work at, is it male and female, or is it predominantly all male?
All men.
Okay.
All men. Yeah.
And what is your experience around your colleagues? Have you had any experiences of any type of anything to deal with your professionalism or any stereotypes or racism of any sort being a Black therapist?
So that's interesting. Presently, I am at the facility that I'm at right now. I'm the only licensed marriage and family therapist, only licensed clinician that's working directly with the inmates. The colleagues have been fine, all females.
Okay.
But also my colleagues are also sworn staff. So I haven't had any issues, you know what I mean? I might see some things or hear some things, language and stuff that I prefer not to see and hear, but it hasn't been anything just really off the chain, I will say that there has been a couple of times that a colleague, which I have no problem with, may ask me, can I see a particular inmate? Because maybe they said, I only want to talk to Black people. You know, I'm not going to talk to you when they see me walk by. And I'm like, I don't have any problem with that. Let's go.
Right.
You know what I mean? I have no problem whatsoever. But again, overall, it's been pretty positive.
That's great. That's really good to hear. And I think one thing that's important to know, it's depending on the region, depending on the city and state that you live in, you can have different experiences, you know, and I think that coming from California, we have such a diverse state, as well as just, you know, who we surround ourselves with. So maybe in California, it would be different as a social worker or a therapist than, you know, being one in DC, just with my own experience. So that's great to know, because I would definitely say that, you know, you feel more at ease or even feel more safe when you feel more included, right? Or you feel like they're not outcasting you because you look different or you're from a different state.
I just want to add to that too, Marencia. It's like, you know, when as a clinician, when a client comes in to speak to me about a concern, an issue, you know, it takes a lot to build up nerves, courage, whatever they need to build up to come into the office or place of work. But if they also have to explain their culture, or feel that they have to explain their culture before they could even talk about their concern, that's heavy. And I think sometimes, you know, as an African-American therapist, when another African-American person comes in to seek service, or a person of color, there's just some common knowns. We don't necessarily have the exact same background, but there's certain things they just usually feel like, I don't have to explain this.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? So I think it's just always helpful. It can be helpful.
And how about
I'm laughing because I'm thinking of, like, you know, I have connections on social media with different like melanated therapists and all of that. And, you know, the meme about like, I don't want to have to explain when I say I feel a certain kind of way. I don't want to have to explain what that means. And just the language and like how we communicate with each other. And, you know, our language is so important. Because that's, you know, when you're in therapy, you have to communicate. And so having that barrier, like you were saying, Lucretia, it just makes it that much more difficult to move through the therapeutic process. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that's what that made me think of.
And see, and that's where I've had a lot of experience in, because in the field of social work, you know, I started off in San Diego as a behavioral specialist. And when I would do in-home therapy, as well as going to the school, advocating for, you know, my clients' families, I was really just maybe one, maybe two of us when it comes to Black or Brown behavioral specialists or social workers. And that's where I saw the disconnect, because my colleagues who were Caucasian, you know, it was just so many questions, as well as that disconnect culturally to our individuals. So I definitely saw the disconnect, as well as, you know, the being reserved, I guess is what I'm trying to say, when you have a minority family and you're only really going off of your bias, or you're going off of your stereotypes of what you may see. If you don't come from a background with diversity of family, diversity of friends. And even for myself personally, you know, being the only one or two Black and Brown behavioral therapists, it was challenging, because what I saw was the majority of my families were Caucasian. I would have like maybe like two or three that were African American families. So I always wondered when I was working in San Diego, like, where are our Black families? You know what I mean? Like, why is it that I have a load of 15 and yet predominantly are, you know, Caucasian families, and here and there, you know, Mexican families. But I always wondered, you know, why is it that, you know, I don't have more on my caseload?
Now, where was your agency organization, Marencia?
So at the time, I was a ABA, which is Applied Behavioral Analysis therapist, doing in-home therapy for children and families with autism.
Okay.
And that was in San Diego.
So, I mean, were your clients, were they across the county or in specific areas?
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. So it was across the county for the most part. Of course, I would say that if I was in like, Southeast San Diego, maybe I would have more African American families. But at the same time, like we know, not to get too much into it, when it comes to, having a child diagnosed with autism,
Mhm.
studies have shown that African American children are diagnosed with autism not until they're in grade school. And we know
Mm,
the importance of having early intervention, and that is comparing to their white counterparts that are
mhm.
in regional center. They have early intervention 2, 3, 4 years old. So
Right.
they have that early age to try to, develop those skills. But if you're African American or, an other minority descent, and you're not getting diagnosed till you're in school because of the lack of education around your pediatrician, then there's definitely some discrepancies there as well.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And I feel like my experience was so much different because I was a nonprofit and with, you know, contracted through the county, but not necessarily a county employee.
Mhm.
And where I worked before, because, I had a lot of African American families, and even like, from Southeast, even all the way up to like Oceanside, the back end of
Okay.
Oceanside.
Mhm.
So
Right.
I, through my working with the children, I had like, that whole gamut, not necessarily going as south as Chula Vista, but yeah, from Southeast up until Oceanside.
Okay.
I got to serve some of the Black and Brown communities throughout San Diego. So
And what
very
was your
interesting.
experience with them of, seeing, like Lucretia was saying, seeing a therapist that looked like them? Because we know that San Diego, we are diverse, but at the same time, when it
Mhm.
comes to our field, more of a Caucasian woman
Mhm.
field. So did you experience
Mhm.
anything of like, wow, like I'm so glad that we have a therapist that looks like us, like Lucretia was
Mhm.
saying, just having their burdens down, like, hey, I can really talk to you, we can relate. Like, what was your experience with that?
Yeah. I got a mixed. So I had
Okay.
some families that were like, yes, like, I feel so much more comfortable. And then, I had the occasional highly skeptic,
Mhm.
not really trusting, because, there's still that discrepancy of
Yeah.
privilege, I guess, if I can say it that way, of,
Mhm.
okay, like I may be of, a different income level. And here you coming in, educated Black woman, like, how are you going to tell me how to do things? And I've actually had one case, and it literally, I was so hurt. And it was in Oceanside, and the mom called. I think I went in twice, and the mom, because I was providing in-home services, and the mom called my supervisor and was like, don't send her back. I want a white clinician. And I was like, wow. And I think that's kind of where that whole thing came in. It was, thinking like, well, she's coming in, and she might perceive me as lower class or whatever. And I use a lot of humor. Like, I think I'm pretty funny, and I'm always trying to use humor just to kind of lighten things up. Cause I'm not at your home because of CPS. I'm at your home to make sure that your child is safe.
Right.
Exactly.
And like, not in danger of getting expelled or being hospitalized. Like, that's why I'm here. But she was not for it. And
Wow.
I was shocked. I was very shocked. But I guess, I think it's 50-50. Like, some parents it still takes them a while to warm up, because there's this, a class kind of mentality of, who are you and how are you going to tell me how to run my children? And yeah, so
So
very interesting.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that was my experience when I first moved to Washington, D.C. So again, like you know, and the viewers, I'm from San Diego, California. I moved to DC for graduate school, went to Howard University, HU. And, coming to Howard, going to DC, different. I mean, it was just different when it comes to the lifestyle, the culture there. It's just a different ball game. So here I come. I mean, I already look really young as it is. I'm in my mid-30s, but I already look really young. I'm going to Howard. And then at the same time, I have a strong California accent. So, when I was first getting in the field and see, you know, majority of my clients were from Southeast DC, like I shared before. And exactly like you said, Yolanda, they are under poverty level. You know what I mean? Like 98% of them out of jail, you know, suffering with drugs, PTSD, so forth. So I witnessed and I experienced that classism because whether if they hadn't said it to me, it was just written on their face. You know what I mean? Like, you look bougie, like you from Howard. I talk white, I talk proper. So it's like when you look at somebody and if you're just only going off of face value, and it's like, but what you don't know is like, I am Black. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I may have not experienced some of the things that you have experienced, but that doesn't mean that I can't help you. You know what I mean? Like, just because I'm going to Howard and I'm from California and I talk proper, that doesn't mean that I cannot, you know, build trust with you and build rapport so I can help you. And one of the things that one of my mentor shared with me years ago was like, what you can share with them is, even though I may have not experienced what you go through, I know what works because I haven't experienced that. Does that make sense? As well as, you know, gradually, you know, they put their guard down, you know, they trusted me, we built rapport. 2 years later, I had to start termination because I was moving back to California 2 to 3 months beforehand, because these are the same clients, like, no, like, why are you leaving me? Like, you gave me hope, like you changed my life. Like, yes, I started off as being reluctant, but gradually, like, you were the one that really helped me and just changed my mindset and allowed me to look at life differently.
That's great. That's great. Well,
those moments are the best. Those moments are the best moments ever.
Yolanda, have you noticed any difference between working with clients Cali versus North Carolina? Any similarity?
I'm not working with anybody in North Carolina.
Really?
I'm not. California keeps me busy enough.
Okay. All right, Cali. All right.
So yeah, right now I'm not. So I couldn't. Mauricia can speak more about the East Coast than I can. Yeah, I only see people in California.
Okay.
It's my comfort level, I guess.
Yeah.
So has anybody had any, like, can you share any experiences that were not necessarily positive, or any time that you weren't received by African-American clients? Any challenges or anything that came up specific because you were African-American and they're African-American?
Only like I just shared right now, just like in the beginning. But again, I think that when you are a woman, you're a minority, you are confident in who you are in your profession as a woman, especially number one, as a woman of God. For me personally, I wasn't going to back down from them. I wasn't going to say, you know what, you know, I'm scared. You know what I mean? Like, he's intimidating me. I was like, okay, I'm still here. You know what I mean? Because so many times people have already pushed them away, you know, because of their past or being a felon or, you know, whatever the case may be. But to me, it's like, I'm going to show you something different if you give me that time and that opportunity to trust me. And I'm just so blessed that I could be that that positive role in their life, you know? And at the same time, I didn't take it personal. I think that's the key thing right there. I didn't take it personal. I knew that it came from somewhere else, whether it was the bad experience they had with another light-skinned woman, or, you know, an experience that they had, you know, with another Black therapist, whatever the case may be. I didn't take it personally because this is my first meeting you. So I knew that by breaking down the barriers, breaking down the sticky mud of where they got that from, that's when you can really dig deep and do some good work as a therapist.
What about you, Yolanda?
Well, I mean, I had the mom in Oceanside, and I unfortunately didn't have the opportunity. Like, my program, because the person she called was the program director, because we were a small little program, I guess. But I didn't have the opportunity. I asked for the opportunity to, like, speak with the mom again, and she was adamant for whatever reason, so I didn't get the chance to kind of say, like, what's really going on.
Sure.
But I did have a grandma that took a little bit of time. And I think she lived in like an Encanto area.
Okay.
So I grew up in Encanto. So I'm like, I got this. Like, you know, I grew up in Encanto, you know, it's pretty, you know, a lot of Black and brown folks in Encanto. So, I thought I, had it in, and I don't know what the hang up was, but we had to just kind of put the goal to the side for a minute and just really just kind of just talk and just, communicate on just how you doing, how are things going, instead of diving into like, I'm here to help you with your child. Like, let's just talk. Like, how's life going? How are you doing today? What do you have going on? So sometimes just having to like, fill the room and know like, okay, sometimes, we therapists, we come in, we like, yeah, let's go, let's work, let's do the fix and let's do all this. Like, let's find it out, let's solve it. And sometimes you just have to take that step back and build that relationship. I have a client now, it took months, she was just like, I know I don't trust you. I know I need to trust you. Okay. And I'm not there yet. And I'm like, okay, well, today we don't have to talk about emotions today. Let's just talk. What's going on with you? What you doing? How you doing? What's going on? What's going on? Tell me about work. Tell me about your life at home. Like, not in a way that's like, therapy. Like, I'm not trying to look for emotions. You don't have to do that. But like, just talk the, regular, shoot the conversation. So
yeah, absolutely.
You got to read the room.
I think that's so important. I mean, even like when I was doing my therapy work in DC, when, that rapport was built and the trust, you could still be a therapist. And like you said, you still have that lingo, like, hey girl, how's it going? Mm-hmm. Like, you can still be professional. Mm-hmm. And when you, like you said, when you come in, look, you're a person, I'm a person. You know what I mean? Like, we all have weaknesses that we're dealing with. And if you just talk to that person like an actual human being and not just the therapy terminology, that's when they can really just let go and just allow them to express whatever they're going through. And I think that's so important to do, because so many times, and even maybe in other, I guess, like communities, I should say, what I've experienced with my other colleagues is very like terminology. Have to do this way, it has to be book smart. And then you see where they're like, you're not looking.
I don't even know what that means.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
How about you?
What about you, Lucretia? Yeah. What about you? Give us one of your stories. I know you got a story. At least one.
Hey, one of my stories. So what comes to mind, because it's just kind of came up more than once. So when I was working on my intern hours as a clinician, one of the premier places that I advertised was Psychology Today, and that's a website where you can go to and you can literally go ahead and figure out if you want a psychologist, male or female, a certain ethnic person, certain age. You can really tailor it, to yourself, what you think is going to work best for you. And so most of the calls that I would get came from that site. They were generated from that site. And so for whatever reason, several couples that I actually work with found my information on that site, but more specifically, it was the men. So it was like the husband, the fiance, or whatever. I don't know how it came down, but that's the person who would initiate the call. And so there had been several times when they came into the office, the brother saying, nice to meet you. He knew what I looked like and we spoke. And the female was just like, okay. And oftentimes they were coming in because it was some issues of trust, And so we're already starting off with, okay, here we go. We need to make sure that both parties understand that this is a professional relationship. And literally, there are times when it worked out just fine. Literally, it worked out just fine, from the male and female. But I always made sure that I addressed the female, addressed them equally and what have you. But there were a couple of times where the sister basically said, I know why we're here. You up to something, to the husband or what have you.
Wow.
And to literally address it in the session.
Therapy does not include sex.
Never, ever.
Right.
Ever. And we literally had to discuss it, right there and there. And for a couple of people, we were able to get past that, but there were a couple that we weren't able to get past it. And I had to explain to the male that, listen, your ultimate goal is what? to strengthen your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that is going to hinder that needs to be removed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've offered, 3 referrals, which is standard, to
Mhm.
old white men with bumps on their face, whatever. So it's just, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just do whatever you have to do to strengthen your relationship, because that's the reason why you're
That's
here.
why you're there. Yeah.
That's why you're there. I mean, it doesn't matter, so yeah.
But
See
you
this?
made a good point, is that if you know whether as a therapist or the client is not a good fit, it is very important to refer out. I mean, there
Absolutely.
are specialties where you're like, you know what, based on my faith, based on what I believe, whatever the case may be, you have to refer out, because at the end of the day, it's for the client. And if you know that you're not going to be your best for that individual and whatever they're going through or who they are, it's so much more important to refer out. You know what I mean? Like, again, don't take it personal.
And
it's
yeah,
not a good fit.
And the most important thing for the therapeutic process, like, we can talk interventions, we can talk theories, we can talk approaches all day, but if that rapport isn't there,
exactly.
it's a wash. You're
Doesn't
basically
matter.
just wasting money. So if you don't have that connection or have that ability or desire to connect with your clinician,
Yeah.
you're just find somebody else. It's almost like a medical doctor. Like, if you don't feel like you can trust your medical doctor, pick another one. If you don't feel like you can trust your therapist and you can, get to the point, like my client, she didn't trust me at first, but she was willing to get to that point.
Sure.
But if we'd have been here for, 5 months and it's still tight, then we might have to talk about that. We have to talk about referrals, because that rapport is so very important. Like, you're trusting me with your psychological space. That's major. That's major.
Yeah, and on the same note, Walanda, I always tell people when they're looking for a therapist, I mean, everybody doesn't offer like free consultations. I think most people do for half an hour, what have you. I always strongly suggest that you call more than one person, and it literally is an interview. You're interviewing them for a fit, and I know it's over the phone, but you're still interviewing them, and as well as that therapist is interviewing you.
Absolutely.
It's not just about securing clients and making money. It should never be about that. So if it's a fit, move forward. If it's not, there's no loss.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Kind of piggybacking on what you were saying, I do, of course, want to stay on topic, but I think one thing that definitely needs to be shared and discussed, even if it's just for a couple minutes, is the importance of getting healthy mentally, emotionally, and physically. Like you were saying, of just, if you go to a doctor, you want to get healthy, right? So you want to manage whether it's your high blood pressure, whether it's your high cholesterol, whether you have diabetes, and, in our society and within our community, you hear it all the time. I want to eat clean. I want to, manage my medical issues and who I am as in my physicalness, but it's nearly as important to get healthy mentally and emotionally. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And it's like, if you're not healthy mentally and emotionally,
it's all connected.
It's so interconnected. I think that we need to do a better job in our Black and Brown communities of discussing, you know what, I'm going to my primary care doctor because I need to work on my diabetes because I want to get healthy. Then I'm going next week to my therapist and I'm going to work out some things because I want to be healthy mentally, as well as
to figure out why I'm eating unhealthy. Yes.
Emotional eating, right?
Yes.
Which is a true thing.
Yes.
And then at the same time, being open and not fearful or that your family member is going to crack jokes or judge you, that you need to go to see your psychiatrist to manage your mental illness. And I think that we need within our community to do a better job of really just opening up and talking about our health, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally, because again, it's all interconnected.
Yeah, Marissa, you're talking about stigmas, at the end of the day, it's about, the stigmas that many African Americans have about mental illnesses, as well as seeking treatment for mental health. And the thing is, I truly have seen a change in terms of people are becoming more receptive. Absolutely. Over the years that I've been doing this work, I definitely have seen a change for the better, but we still have a long ways to go.
Absolutely.
And I mean, I remember there was a time where at least I never heard people talk about mental health or mental health illness in the church. And I hear it a lot now. Absolutely. And that's a good thing. People are saying, look, I'm dealing with this. I'm working on this. The illness doesn't, I'm not the illness. It's something that I'm dealing with, handling.
Exactly.
And other people are speaking up as well. And there's power in that, truly power in that. And I wanted to get to the point where you don't have to disclose all your business to everybody, but if you choose to speak about it, you're not looked down upon. And literally, I was thinking last night, I remember once I was working for this technical company, IT company, and I remember getting on an elevator, and it was 4 or 5 white guys got on the elevator. They had on like shorts and workout gear, and one of them didn't. And they were saying, hey, so-and-so, are you going to join us at the play some ball? The guy said, what time are you going to go? And they said, whatever time. The guy who didn't have on the workout gear said, hey, me and the wife have an appointment with the therapist. And I'll meet you guys afterwards. One of the other guys said, who are you seeing? So these 4 or 5 guys started talking about, oh yeah, me and my wife also saw that person. What have you heard of this person? They're really, really good. And these guys couldn't have been any older than late 20s,
wow.
30s. Literally, they were talking about it like it was everyday language, like, a restaurant, making recommendations.
Yeah. What that made me think of, Lucretia, is that also, I think, I could be wrong, but this is my theory or thought that, therapy was seen as a privilege. Like that's for people who are privileged that can afford to go to therapy.
Okay.
So it's for, people who have higher means and higher level of means to be able to do that, and a lot of our, Black and brown communities, like for whatever, for a lot of reasons, we don't have those means. And so it was seen as a luxury to be able to go to therapy. So that was part of it too. And now that it's, like you said, it's becoming more normalized in our communities and there's more of us in the field. I think that's definitely opened the door to like, sure. Okay, like you're here, you look like me, kind of sort of, I think that this could be safer now because I don't, have to,
right.
It just makes it feel like it's more accessible.
Right.
I agree with you 100%. Yeah. And again, and that's one of the main reasons why I even went to Howard and why I, went to DC, because personally, I was tired of only being the only Black and brown employee, to be honest. Like outside of my dad's side of the family, my mom's side of the family, they're all successful. I'm like, I need to be around my brothers and sisters, like that we're in this together. And when I went to Howard, huge opening, like, oh my God, like this is what I've been looking for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you educate your communities on all levels, whether it's the high, middle, poor, and it's like we have to educate each other. We have to have these platforms like we do right now on this radio show to say it's okay, to break those generational curses. It's okay to break those, traditions of what stays in our house, but then that's why the sexual abuse continues. That's why Uncle Joe, the rapist, continues, molesting children in your family or whatever the case may be, or the alcoholism, because nobody's talking about it. Nobody's saying, hey, you need to leave. Get that child out of that room. Like you have to have a voice. And again, like you said, Lucretia, more people are having a voice. They're saying, you know what? If I have to be that one person in my family to make a change so this stops, so it won't continue, then that's what it takes. But I definitely believe that we've came a long ways. And of course, we have a lot more to accomplish. But I mean, having these platforms, and thank God for technology and all that to educate everyone.
I wanted to like elaborate on something that Walanda said, how like therapy for many was seen as a luxury, a privilege, and still now. I mean, I think there's more things available, but we still need more. We need more people of color. We need more organizations. We need more private practices and what have you. But I wanted to say what I found the years I was working with child welfare services for many years, that again, if you are involved with child welfare services, something went wrong. Straight
Mhm.
up.
Yeah.
You don't want to be involved. So
Yeah.
that's
Right.
I just want to put that, there. However, those who are involved, voluntary or not voluntary, are court
Mhm.
ordered.
Mhm.
They do developmental assessments on children from out the womb.
Mhm.
So what I found is those who are involved, and many of the folks are, people of minor means,
Mhm.
but they have access oftentimes to many more services than most of the people that are in the middle ground, and that's most of us that fall in the middle ground.
Mhm.
So again, you got the privileged, the wealthy, who can access services and stuff, and then you
Mhm.
have those who, many receiving government assistance, and
Yeah.
they have all the developmental screenings. They have people coming in their home and working with their
Mhm.
children with autism.
Mhm.
They have many are mandated to actually seek
Right.
services, counseling, or
Mhm.
what have you.
Mhm.
But it's quite interesting because when I've been in like sessions where we're facilitating meetings, in a plan of care, those people who are working class who had health insurance oftentimes could not get in to see a clinician. Like what
Mm.
services they needed or when they needed them by could not be met with their
Mhm.
private insurance.
Right.
Whereby if they had Medi-Cal or what have you, they had access to a plethora of
Yes.
services
Yes.
and clinicians, which is, it's just really interesting. So it was quite frustrating, for a lot of folks. So again,
Absolutely.
changes are being made. It's still, we have a long ways to go in terms of making services available.
Yeah.
And so one thing that I've really been experiencing, which is, to be honest, been the complete opposite since I've been here in San Diego, at least in North County. So what I've been really struggling with is when you have a child that has, let's just say, moderate, severe intellectual disability, then you have autism. And this is all 25 of my individuals, no lie. So you have an intellectual disability, you have autism, you have anxiety, you're taking literally 8, 9, 10 types of medication. Nobody is working together within the system. You need a therapist because, like, one of my individual, she was sexually assaulted in the group home. So, and she's non-communicative.
Wow.
All of that. And our problem is there's no therapist that specializes in having doing therapy for a child or an adult that has IDD and autism.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And you may have a child that is nonverbal. So it's like, okay, well, he or she needs a therapy because of the trauma, because she's waking up in the middle of the night. She has night terrors. So we know that she needs the therapy, but it's like, who is out there that can specialize in that? And thank God, like for me and my other colleagues, we're it's about to be a year next month, and we'll be certified in the next year when I become a clinician licensed through California, then I can. But again, though, it's like if you have other disabilities and struggles, and that's another thing, and they have Medi-Cal. So there isn't a lot, or at least in California, there isn't a lot that take Medi-Cal, and you have ID and
privately, yeah.
I mean, it's there's so many facets and so many levels. And it's like, what can we do
for those specific things that need to be treated? I'm following you. I'm following you. I'm following you.
Wow.
Yeah. So, like you said, we really need, more Black and brown therapists that specialize, but at the same time, okay, until we can find that therapist, let's do the best in our ability to connect these systems to put something in place for these children.
Well, Marincia, that might be one of your niches,
Yes, it is.
If no one's doing it, obviously someone needs to do it, right?
And that's why I believe things happen for a reason, because again, I'll be certified next month. And then next summer, when I'm licensed in the state of California, then I could put that on my resume.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
absolutely.
It's the need is there.
Very interesting. Like, we've been spending time talking about clients, but Marincia, as you move into working in systems that work with clients, that's another level too, in being maybe the only melanated person in the room full of other white care providers. And
Story for you. That just happened to me yesterday.
And all that comes with that, all that comes with that is definitely an experience. We talked about like the trainings, and, we've talked offline about, going to these trainings that come to San Diego, and your company will send you, and you're like, okay, like where, and, you do a lot of role playing. And so you're like, okay, I want to role play, but you don't understand this issue that I have that I'm role playing, because it's very interesting, the hat shifting that goes on in being, in a predominantly white male profession.
Right. Yeah. So my experience that I'll share with you ladies, make this long story short for everybody. So we had a systems meeting yesterday, and this particular individual, she's African-American, and one of the supervisors, white woman, we were talking about her diagnoses, and she's like, she's very paranoid. When I first met her a couple of years ago, she said that she's paranoid, she said she doesn't trust the cops. She doesn't feel that police are on her side, and basically just like sharing her experience, right? So I asked her, I said, was this the only experience or the only time she shared this with you? She's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, so I'm thinking more about it. I'm like, okay, well, if she's not paranoid with her money, with her family members, other people in her circle, and it was only that one time, then I don't think it's being paranoid. And I had to tell this woman, and I said it in a professional way, but I'm like, I'm a Black woman, just like my client's a Black woman. And I said, what she shared with you is paranoid. That is our reality. And I said, especially what's going on today. And I said, prime example, on Sunday, of a Black man that got shot seven times in his back in front of his kids. I said, that's not being paranoid. I said, that's our reality that we have to face every single day. And she was like, this was Zoom. So she's like, oh my God, like, you're so right. I'm so sorry. I didn't think of it that way. I said, I know. And I said, again, that's not being paranoid. I said, as a Black woman, that's the truth. We don't trust cops right now. And I even shared this with her. I said, how do you not know that her Black father or her Black brothers or uncles or even aunts or mother never had any experiences in a bad way with cops?
For her.
For her herself. Exactly.
Exactly. I said, so just because of that one conversation does not mean that my client is paranoid, and it totally changed her mindset. And these are the conversations that we need to have, again, in a professional way to change their mentality. Because again, if you're going off of just what you're seeing on the news,
your own experience, yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
Your worldview is not the only worldview.
Hello, that right there. I want to share an experience, and speaking very general. So when I was working, but I can say working for Child Welfare Services, we would have these meetings that include the children, the family, and other people who are invested in that family's health. So that meeting can be anywhere from like a couple of people to a room full of people. And so this particular meeting we were having, I was not the acting social worker in terms of over the case, but I did assessments, and I was there to share my assessment information to help in the planning for the family. Well, anyway, this particular case was around a foster mother who was African-American and a child. And she walked in with a look on her face like, I'm here, bring it. And it was you know the look like what? Yes. Yeah, I'm sitting there where okay, cool, let's get going. And I recognize it. You know, like again, if you were working with Child Welfare Services, something didn't go right. You know, I get it. And so I happened to take a seat by her, and there was literally 20 to 22 people, professional staff in the room. All were Caucasian, all were women. Now, mind you, before I went into the room for the meeting, I'd heard people discussing the case, supervisors and the like, and it was all negative. Like they had an issue with the woman. I mean, big time issue. So anyway, we go in there and they asked her questions, and she was looking them straight in the eye and answering the questions. And they were coming after her. I felt it, and I was supposed to be part of their team. And to the point where they weren't hearing her. And she was saying, you know, that's not what I said. And she kept repeating herself. And finally, I said, excuse me. I said to the lady, I said, please correct me if I'm wrong, but this is what I hear her saying.
There you go.
And then I said it. And then she says, exactly. And then they all looked at me and I said, so she's not saying X, Y, and Z. She's saying what she's saying. You hear what she's saying, you know? And so, you know, me and one of the supervisors, we, you know, a little tick for tack, you know what I mean? I'm like, because they were absolutely coming after her and she wasn't backing down. And so at the conclusion of the meeting, you know, I stayed for a couple minutes and spoke to her and she just looked at me and she says, you know, I've been fostering for over 30 years. And she goes, I see very few African-Americans, professional staff in these meetings. And when they are in the meetings, they might as well not be there because they don't help with the facilitation. And she goes, this is the first time I actually felt that someone heard me.
Wow.
And I want to thank you. And I said, you don't need to thank me. That's my job. This is my job. You understand what I'm saying? And so the interesting thing is after the meeting, I literally heard one of the professional staff who was there speak to a supervisor and says, oh, so how long have they known each other? Literally. Literally.
Told y'all I have no poker face.
You know?
Just...
Yeah. And so she wasn't speaking to me. She was speaking about me. And I just politely walked up and says, I just met her like you. Why would you ask that? And she didn't know what to say. You know, needless to say, you know, they weren't really feeling my presentation after that meeting. Yeah, but I'm okay with that because one of the reasons that I went to work for Child Welfare Services is because I knew that there was very few of us.
Right.
And we need to bring, even though it's a difficult system to be a part of, we need to be present.
Right.
We need
Representation.
Absolutely.
Representation is important.
To help the staff recognize and understand and learn, as well as to support our clients in the time when they need support desperately, you know.
Yeah.
But I've experienced
that. Reminded me of an experience because, you know, being the, you know, only Black clinician in a program, I remember like I would constantly get Black families and I was like, this is great. Like, I mean, I understand that. At the same time, I'm trying to build my experience. So being, you know, I've had it opposite where now I feel like you're pigeonholing me and I don't get to work with, you know, white clients or Mexican clients. And you're giving me the cases with the challenging parents.
Well, that right. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
That being pigeonholed.
Oh my goodness.
It's a tightrope walk because it's like, yes, I want to represent. I definitely want to represent. I want to make sure that they have a voice, that their voice is heard, where it might not be when there's so many white spaces or white faces in a room. I definitely want to make sure that they're being heard. At the same time, I don't want to be just pigeonholed with the difficult parents because my white colleagues don't know how to do their cultural competency. You know, I have to do my cultural competency. Why don't they have to do their cultural competency?
I've had those experiences too. And I literally had conversations with supervisors in the past. Said, look, I will be supportive, but at what point will they learn how to deal with these difficult Black clients? I'm dealing with difficult white clients. I'm sent out to Campo where the client told you on the phone, supervisor, that they don't want no ends in the house. But that wasn't switched up.
Right.
So you know, what's going on here?
So with me, to make a long story short, you know, I'm Black and Mexican. So moved back to California and the population I'm working with now is more Hispanics. Remind you, I look more Black than Mexican, but I am pro-Black just like I am pro-Mexican. And it's interesting because there was a time I was speaking, it was a Zoom call, and we were speaking with the director of the program, myself, my two Mexican colleagues were like, you know what, we want to start going to town hall meetings. We want to go to schools and start educating the Hispanic population about more about autism and different diagnoses and what it would look like with their community. She's like, the director, she's Jewish. She's like, but you're not Mexican, like you're not Hispanic. Like, what would you know? Wow. I said, actually, I am Mexican and Black. And I said, and I do know this field. I know our people, what they may need. And I said, don't look at me as if I'm not something because I don't look merely Mexican. You know what I mean? And so now,
have you been to Mexico and seen the diverse of color in Mexico?
Blue eyes, blonde hair, then you may have that look like me with darker. Then you may look more like Lucretia's color.
Yep.
Right.
Absolutely.
So
level of ignorance.
Yeah, right. So it's interesting how, and I love it that my population is predominantly Hispanic. And what we're dealing with me and my Mexican colleagues is, you know, majority of our families don't speak English. So we're going into the primary care doctor's visits. We're going to the pediatrician, the psychiatrist visits. Even one of my colleagues just went into a primary care appointment with a neurologist, all white. So they're short because they don't have the patience that she speaks Spanish. So we're trying, or not me, but other colleagues have to translate, right? So they're like, well, I have to go. Or if she doesn't understand, then I don't know what to tell you. Or, well, we don't have a translator. And my colleague's like, well, that's why I'm here to help her so that she can understand. And that's what we're facing in right now is like, these they don't even have the patience or the empathy. You're like, you know what, let's just sit a little, even if it's just an extra 10 minutes, just so I can explain to her what we're talking about for her child right now. Right.
Yeah. And that's why it's so important for there to be representation to when your voice is not being heard because of your language barriers or because of your socioeconomic status, you know, to have that professional there with you. And so it's unfortunate, but right now, as we bridge that gap, that's why it's important for us to be in those spaces to bridge that gap.
Right. And that's why we're in this field. You know, at the end of the day, we're advocates.
Absolutely.
Because if we're not a voice, like I always say, it's like my mantra is like, I'm the voice for children and families. Okay. Because if we're not, who's going to help them?
Right.
So, but Lucretia, did you want to just share? And we only have a couple more minutes. We just wanted to share just 6 ways to fight mental health stigma. Of course, in other episodes, we're going to dive much more deeper in that. But we just want to just have a takeaway for some of our viewers this evening.
Let me see if I can pull it up.
All right. If not, I have
So everybody, technically speaking, I have to figure this out. Rincy, why don't you go ahead and take it?
Sounds good. I can do it. All right. So just like we were just discussing a little earlier, one is teach those in your life about mental health. Once you have educated yourself, pass on the knowledge, of course, to your family, your friends, your children. Again, be an advocate for your family, be an advocate for your child. They have no voice. Spread as much of that knowledge as possible to teach the world and the importance of mental health. The second one is talk openly about mental health, like we shared before, at your dinner table with your spouse, your children, your family members. Allow it to be a safe space to express how you feel mentally and emotionally. 3, choose empowerment over shame. Don't feel guilty. Don't feel shameful because you want to do something different than what your family is used to maybe. Again, be that one, be that second, third, how many family members to get out, branch out and get help and empower yourself and others. 4, being open and honest about your own mental health. Share how you see the therapist and psychiatrist, just like you do, again, when you have to see a primary care doctor, without any fears or judgments with others. 5, don't harbor self-guilt or pride. Sometimes I know within our own community, and of course we'll dive into this a little later, you know, I not me personally, but you know, some people like, hey, I don't want people to feel like I'm weak. I don't want to feel like I'm not strong, so I'm not going to go and see a therapist. So definitely let's try to change that stigma. Let's see. Then the last one, number 6, be there for your friends and family. Be there for those in your life. Listen, support them without judgment when they are experiencing some hard time mentally and emotionally.
Awesome.
Good tips.
Yeah.
Great tips.
So is it,
Great tips.
you want me to share numbers, you guys?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Awesome. So we want to thank everybody for tuning in. And we just want to say, although we hope that we've said something that you find of interest, as well as that we've helped you in some kind of way or opened your mind up into seeking help or what have you. Even though this is an informative show, we hope it is not to be a substitute for therapy or seeking help and support if
Absolutely.
that's what you need. And so a couple of numbers if you need help. The National Suicide Prevention Lifeline is 800-273-8255. 24-hour crisis center call is 800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-8255. And then we also have a few other numbers that we're going to actually just kind of post. So if you're looking for any type of help, you can refer back to the numbers, phone numbers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'll make sure I post those now.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you everybody for viewing our show. We are so excited for our next episode, which is going to be in 2 weeks. And at that time, we will be talking about how to manage your mental and emotional health during COVID.
Yeah.
So I know that they, even within ourselves,
You don't want to miss that.
Yes.
And
So
again, even though we have ideas and things that we want to cover, we really want people who are viewing and tuning in to share your ideas. What are you interested in? You know, what has
What's
you
been working?
you contemplating? You know, please share, because we want to make sure that we are speaking of and dialoguing about things of interest, and that will be of help to you. It's important.
And absolutely, just a baby plug, you know, share this with your friends and family that, you know, they who do have stigmas with mental health, and, you know, the people in your family that like, ooh, you would really benefit, you know, share this. I mean, I have people in my family, I ain't gonna lie, you know,
Exactly.
but, you know, like,
Yeah.
you really need to go to therapy, you know, not me, but yeah, share this with people. It's important, you know, to share in our community. Knowledge is power. You know, we've heard that many times, you know, and all that get an understanding for us biblical folks. So, you know, share this, you know, because we're wanting to, you know, inform the community and bring more awareness to the community about what's out there and how to be healthier. It's time, you know, it's time for us to heal. We've been through so much. It's time for us to heal, you know.
Absolutely. And if the word mental health turns people off, don't use mental health. Just say 3 sisters dialoguing. Tune in.
Right.
3 sisters dialoguing, because when I
talking.
when I talk to people in the session, I don't, you know, I'm talking to them. They don't, you know, I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm picking up and what direction, you know, I'm trying to go and try to help them open up. But I don't have to use big terms, psychological terms. I don't have to even use the word mental health and mental illness.
Exactly.
It's not needed.
It's a conversation. So.
Cool.
All
So
right.
again, thank everybody for tuning in.
Yeah,
Right.
thanks.